Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, our ongoing study in The Spirit of Hope by Moltmann. We're going to take a look at the last chapter for part 1. It'll be chapter 7. We're going to look at a place of hope. It will conclude part 1, which is the phenomenology of hypostasis. It'll conclude part 1. Let's begin with block 1. How did we transition from ancient cities to our current capitalistic city? Number 1, urbanization. More than 50% of all persons live in cities. Unlimited urban areas have emerged. Any city with over 10 million inhabitants is called a world city. The world city. Moltmann asked, does the city itself have a future? We are working in a Babylonian prison, anticipating the heavenly Jerusalem. Shanghai is a conglomerate of skyscrapers. African megacities breed slum areas that continue to emerge. And the American city has no center, simply a main street. Urbanization in world cities equals loss of center. The center of ancient cities was the temple, or the palace of the ruler, or the city market. The temple offered a door to heaven, built so that sunbeams reflected at the center of the sanctuary. The ancient temple as center. It represented heaven, earth, and the underworld. It brought the human world into harmony with the divine world. Through its liturgies, the city, culture, gained sanctification. Ancient sanctification of culture. Political power and religious power were connected. Kings and emperors were also high priests, designated the Pontifex Maximus. The emperor was the Pontifex Maximus. People offered sacrifices to secure the welfare of the people. Jericho of Palestine and Uruk of Mesopotamia were the first cities. The first cities. All citizens were organized against danger from outside the city, from outside the walls of the city. Nationalities were separated into different quarters. Classes emerged of rich and poor. Democracy first emerged in Athens. There was an emerging need for democracy. City dwellers were dependent on farmer products. Markets became commercial centers for cities. Harbors became very, very rich. Now the modern industrial town. Industrialization created a new city, says Moltmann. It created immigrant towns. Neighborhoods formed around ethnicity. The industrial town emerged. Typical industrial town. Whole areas become a network of industrial towns. Factories are erected and abandoned based on economic trends. People live where they can work. Profit becomes the only orientation for culture. Workers are to take care of themselves. Therefore, commercial cities and industrial towns end up becoming capitalistic cities. Our task, says Moltmann, is to democratize the capitalistic city, to realize freedom, equality, and human dignity, to live in peace with nature, to have a vision so we do not become apathetic, to have a higher Christian vision so that we don't become apathetic. Our problem is capitalism has become the orientation of the city and the only center that we live by. We need to change that false center. So we move on to block 2. How do we encounter that? How do we meet the problems of the cities with the local life group community? Moltmann really does believe that local life group Christian communities make the difference. So here we are in America very much supporting new church structures with life groups. All churches today within the conservative Protestant denominations all have life group communities. And in Germany, Moltmann proposes the same thing in his 2019 manuscript. This way, we can change the orientation of cultural life. Block 2, Note 1, Global City Culture. A uniform global culture has emerged. In the city, everything must be available at all times. Our stores are 24/7 now. Everything must be available at all time. Seasons no longer count. We require everything to be possible 24/7. However, if we choose to do so, we could return to living according to nature. Living according to nature, we must not suppress local culture traditions. Today, cities express festivals as a melody of the city. Cities carry the memorial culture of history, sometimes expressed in monuments. So global city culture and living according to nature equals a city as a challenge to Christianity. The secular city has no temple, as did the ancient city. Religion has changed with urbanization. Ancient Christianity was city religion, centered in Jerusalem or Alexandria or Antioch. Rural people were pagans. Christianity becoming authentic city religion. Later, the Reformation was effective in a city, the city of Geneva. Remember, it formed the Geneva Bible. Catholicism was strong in rural areas. In industrial England, Methodist religion grew among homeless workers. Today, Pentecostals worship in empty factories. In the industrial areas, decision of faith has replaced belonging to the church. Now we emphasize decision of faith. Decision of faith. Traditions in the church are fading away. Churches should create new missionary communities, new missionary planted churches. Every living congregation consists of small life group communities. Small communities of one's own choice. Like I said, Moltmann proposes these small life group communities. They require Christian hospitality, a meet-your-neighbor environment. Home churches emerge. Small communities of unity emerge. The neighborly equality before God. Modern states offer freedom of religion, opening the transcendent dimension of life. Christian worship becomes a gateway to heaven. With Christ's resurrection, heaven is open for the entire suffering creation. In Acts 7 we read, "Behold, I see the heavens open," and those are the words of Stephen at his martyrdom. So in Block 1 we learn from Moltmann that we have a very desperate situation because we live in cities primarily, and cities have lost spiritual center and spiritual orientation. In Block 2 we learned that ancient Christianity was city-based. Jerusalem, Alexandria, Antioch, especially Alexandria and Antioch. John Mark was bishop in Alexandria, Simon Peter was bishop in Antioch, and they were the two big educational centers for Christianity. Moltmann says to answer that loss of orientation in our city culture, the answer is the small Christian life group. He says that's the heart of the church today, and it's going to be the answer to reorienting our lives toward a Christian vision. And what is that vision? It's in Block 3. It's the coming city of God. That vision is the coming city of God. So let's take a look at block 3. The city is the hope of humanity. But what is the authentic future of an authentic-oriented city? How does it rekindle the promise of freedom and the possibilities for true life? True life in the essence of existence. A future right now yet unknown. Cities are continually reconstructed, however. Urbanization is part of the project, but not all of it. We need a Christian hope that anticipates the success of hypostasis. We anticipate the success of realizing the essence of existence, which is the kingdom of God. And we have a vision for the coming city of God. That is the essence of existence that we posit as believers. And we rekindle that understanding, and we focus on that understanding, and we learn of that understanding in local life group communities. And in this way, we at a very personal level and at a communal level in the church can work toward reorienting the culture that we live in today. And that is why Moltmann concludes part 1 of the book with this chapter. And that is why he concludes part 1, which is the phenomenology of hypostasis. It is the phenomenology of positing and realizing the essence of existence, positing and realizing the kingdom of God. He ends with reminding us that Christianity began in ancient cities like Alexandria and Antioch, and that they were cities with a spiritual center, a Christ-like center, and that we can do that again if we actively participate in the Trinitarian history of God in our churches and in our local small life group communities within the church. So this is very similar to the Protestant structure of churches in America, and Moltmann says it's very much the situation in Germany as well. That in Europe, in Germany, where Moltmann lives, he says the local small life group communities within the church are going to be the birthplace for a new orientation of culture toward kingdom of God, toward coming city of God, toward the essence of existence, hypostasis. We are to participate in positing hypostasis, positing essence of existence, and then participating in the Trinitarian history of God to bring that essence of existence forward, to realize it, and to believe it and see it beyond the veil of finitude through spiritual vision and through spiritual hearing. We see that movement from dunamis, potentiality, to energy, actuality. And in that way, we can reorient capitalistic cities into becoming Christ-centered cities oriented toward the essence of existence, oriented toward the coming city of God. So we get tremendous additional content here to close out part 1 of the book. The book is divided into 100 pages for part 1 and then 100 pages for part 2. This will conclude the first 100 pages. It'll wrap up part 1 with the conclusion of chapter 7 here. And we're going to pick up a summary lesson after this. We're going to do a summary lesson and recapitulate all of part 1 before we begin part 2. So we will have a summary lesson after this for part 1. But this will wrap up chapter 7, and we will pick up next time in our next lesson with our summary of chapters 1 through 7, all 100 pages of part 1.